How we looking now, man?
Oh, that's so much better, buddy. A while ago, everything was.
Sweet.
Well, there's my mic slitching out. There's always something, man. Always some sort of technical difficulties, huh?
Always. It never ever fails.
Oh gosh. So anyway, yeah, we had a little technical issue with. I had it on a slower internet speed a while ago, and things were getting glitchy. But so we're starting out today's podcast with talking about how we got started and what it takes as far as getting a office space. What could a reasonable cost be? Obviously, there's a lot of factors and a lot of cogs in the wheel with this type of thing, but I think it's important that people don't get over their head. So we kind of want to walk into that a little bit and maybe talk about our experiences and kind of, if you're new to the practice or you're starting out, kind of maybe some things to look out for.
Well, and what you just said about being in over your head and biting off more than you can chew, that's definitely what I did whenever I first got started. And that's kind of where that story's going. My old dentist had moved into a new space, and he had his old office, his building that he owned, available for rent. So I gave him a call whenever I got out of school and asked to look at it, and it was perfect for what I thought I wanted at the time. In the past, we've talked about how our practices have evolved and how our mindset has evolved, and at least I've talked about how mine had evolved. And I started off as a mixer, had all the PT equipment, X-ray suite, everything else, and I leased the space from him. It was around 1,500 square feet total, and had a reception area, waiting room, had a front office, had a hall. I can still see it in my mind's eye. I had two adjusting areas, a big open physical therapy bay, a little office / report of findings room, my own little back office, an X-ray room, and a dark room. And not to mention two bathrooms. One bathroom for the public and then one bathroom for the staff. So we leased this place out from him. It's like I said, it was around 1,500 square feet, and we were paying $1,500 a month on a lease on it, plus utilities. Plus, we did all the build out for it, and it sunk a big chunk of money into it. And one thing that you don't want to get trapped in whenever you get started in practice is you don't want to get stuck in what's called the sunk cost fallacy, or the gambler's fallacy, where you think, well, I've already put all this money into it, and I've already put all this time and effort into it. I need to stay with it. If you're on a sinking ship, you need to get off the ship. Even the rats get off of a sinking ship. So, just because you spend a lot of money making a mistake doesn't mean you have to keep making that mistake. And that's what I realized in that space that I was in. But I looked around town. I wanted to find a good spot. And we'll talk about choosing your location and all that here directly. But it wasn't going well. It was way more than I could afford. So lesson one would be, don't rent a space. Don't lease a space that's more than you can afford. And fortunately, I knew my landlord. He was super cool. He and we actually sit on the same board of directors now for a local nonprofit clinic. And there's no love lost between us. He gets it. He understood. But he let me out of my lease. And I'd signed a 3-year lease with him. He let me out of it. No penalty, nothing. He was extremely gracious, and for that I'm thankful even to this day. After that, we moved into a little 600 square foot office suite on the second floor of an office complex. And this suite had 4 rooms. It had one little room for a reception area. It had another room where I put my 2 adjusting tables, my ArthroStem, and that's pretty much the only piece of equipment I kept was my ArthroStem. And a little tiny office for me to put my computer, my printer, my filing cabinets. And then the other room my wife used for massage therapy. Now, some people might hear that and bristle a little bit. Their hairs might stand up on end. They say, what, a massage room? What in the world? My wife's a massage therapist. And it's stupid for her to pay booth rent somewhere else when she can rent out of my place at no additional cost. Her business is completely separate from mine. Completely separate, completely distinct. I don't say, why, this is really tight. You should go back here and get a massage from our massage therapist. She's not even here on the days I work. So for those of you that might get your hackles up over that, get over yourself. But we were there for a good while. No signage, nothing. You had to know we were there. And we were able to build up a pretty decent practice over the course of about 2 years. Overhead was greatly reduced. I was paying $650 a month for that space, all utilities paid, all bills paid except internet. I had my own internet service. And then once we outgrew that space, we moved to the space that we're in now, which as of this October 1st, we will have been in this space for 7 years. And this space is 2,200 square feet. It's on the 3rd busiest street in town. And it's $750 a month. So I got a killer deal on it. I knew the people and know the people that own it, and it's a great space. And eventually, we'd like to look into buying, but that's a whole other can of worms. That's something else that we can get into later. But needless to say, we grew into where we are now, and there's no real risk that we're going to outgrow it anytime soon. At least I hope there's no risk we're going to outgrow it anytime soon.
I hope you are.
Yeah.
I hope
it
you
would
are.
be nice.
Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's a great, great problem to have. Let's be honest.
That's the truth, but it's also a pain in the butt. And frankly, man, I'm lazy. Like right now, I don't want to think about that. Maybe in another 2 years, sure, I'll be willing to entertain that. But right now, I'm like, dude, I don't want to load all this crap up and move it somewhere else.
In school, they talk about having the your practice based, almost like on the busiest street in town. And at a stoplight, so people can like look over and see you or something. Like that's all of a sudden, if you do this, then all of a sudden you're just gonna be, people are gonna be lined up out the door. And I think that's such a funny, like, and there was a coach I went out to see at one time, and he did like everything opposite. So I thought it was awesome, like everything completely opposite. He was on a second floor building. He had the smallest office I've ever seen. Like there was no reception room or waiting room. He had a desk in the front room, at the first room, and the second room was like the adjusting area. I mean, it was like the size of my kitchen. Like it was not very big overall. It was not a very big office. So I had to kind of laugh at that and go, oh my gosh, and this dude's like super successful. Like, why would I need anything that's everything to tell you? Like, like in school, you think I need to be on the ground floor so people can get to me. That's such a nonsense. Like if you're on the second floor, people are going to get to you. They're going to find you. If
people want to see you, they're going to come see you.
That's it. And if you, obviously I think there's something to be said about, maybe moving your office 10 miles away or 15. I mean, there is probably a circle there that you say, this might get a little sketchy, but overall, they're gonna search you out. They're gonna find you. They like you. They already dialed into you. They want to see you. So yes. My story kind of started out the same way, man. I worked for a guy for a year, and I kind of wanted to get away and kind of do my own thing. And so I opened up in a. I still remember my rent was like $17.56 a month or something. It was in a very, kind of high area of town. I call it the high rent district, and it wasn't a nice place, but it wasn't anything special. Looking back on it, going, wow, like compared to like what like style and pretty and all that kind of stuff, like when you walked in, it wasn't a wow factor. It was, oh wow, not a oh wow, like
wow,
this, yeah. So it was it was not that fancy. So I look at it now and go, man, that was a lot of money to spend. Like, you start doing the math, and in a 5-year lease, we stayed there a total of 4 years. We had a very similar scenario, except for we had constant problem. We had this metal roof on this building, and this thing would leak all the time. So constantly, I'm dealing with the landlord. I finally just said, I'm just not going to pay rent until he starts fixing it, and kind of worked out well because I really didn't have the money to pay rent too. So that was kind of an ugly,
there you go. It
kind of worked out. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, but it kind of one of those things where, you're over your head and it's hurting, and you got to take a big ego swallow, man, and just go, all right, then I'm going to go to a place I can actually afford, and that's, it's not really where you want to be, but, so I rented a small office at $550 a month, and it was very similar to what you're describing as far as a real small waiting room. I had an adjusting room, and I had an office in the back that was I rented it out to a massage therapist. And I was like, look, I get, like people are going to start shooting inward at this type of stuff, because that's usually what happens when, any other chiropractor hears this and it's not the same as them. Like, let's start shooting, right? Because that's the chiropractic way almost. I wonder if medical doctors do that. They're like, man, that guy over there, like he doesn't practice like we do. Probably not, who right? Knows? But anyway, another topic, right? Anyway, so I get out of that place after a couple years, and I kind of get into the place I am now, and it's fun because now we have a little bit. It's a nice place. We've done some work to it, put some floors in, but man, it's crazy. You start out growing, and so it's like you play this like mama bear porridge type of situation where it's like, what? How big of a bowl do you need? You want to get in a good size, but not something that's where you're going to outgrow it too fast. So it's real difficult, I think, is finding that like kind of magic sweet spot.
Well, it's hard to gauge. It's really hard to gauge because whenever you get out of school, you don't know what your growth rate's going to be. I mean, there's some guys in the membership group on Facebook that have got to where I am now, and I've been running in the membership model for 8 years now, and they've got to where I am now in half the time.
Yeah.
You know, there are others who have been at it longer than I have, and they're just now getting to the point where I am. So everyone grows at different rates. You know, people are going to see different volumes of people. We're going to make different amounts of money. And a lot of it has to do with your market. It has to do with you and who you are, your personality, your drive, how out there you're willing to get, the type of people you attract. And really, your location does play a role too.
Absolutely.
And there is something to be said about, you know, what they tell us in chiropractic school. Get on the busiest street in town, get on a corner, like you said, where they can look inside you, wave at them when they drive by. But like us, we're on the third busiest street now. But I grew to the point where I could afford to move into this location. In my old location, where I was on the second floor with zero signage. No one knew I was there unless you were looking for me. And we were able to build a practice that way too. So it all depends on how strategic you're willing to be and how much you hustle. But whenever we moved into our new space, I mean, we got way more walk-in traffic than we did before. And we still got some walk-in traffic in our old space where we were on that second floor, but it was largely from other tenants in the building or friends of theirs. They knew that I was there already, and they'd be stopping by to see mama or stopping by to see their husband or wife working or whatever, and they'd swing by and ask about our practice and, you know, get dialed in or get a tune-up. But, I mean, there is something to be said about location. Location is important. It's just probably not quite as important as a lot of the old school guys make it out to be. It may have been at one point, but in the internet age, it's not as critical as it once was.
Yeah, people are going to search you out. You know, it's funny, man. The first place I was in, it had I don't know if you're familiar with the store called The Good Feet, and it's basically just like plastic inserts they put in shoes. And I thought, man, this is like prime territory for me, brother. Like, I'm going to have these people walking in. They're already hurting. Their back hurts because they're wanting inserts. Like, this is fantastic. I don't know. I may have got like 2 people over the 4 years. It was absolutely not worth. Don't go searching out stuff, man. Just put your location in and be done with it. I know that's but that's part of it. The other thing is you got to watch some things like there's something called triple net lease. Are you familiar with that term?
I didn't have to deal with that at any of the 3 places that I've rented at. I know we talked about it in chiropractic school. There at Parker, part of our business class, we did talk about a lease. We did talk about getting a lease. We did talk about triple net, but I don't remember jack crap about it. I know
it's
nothing
really
about it.
Nothing that fancy. Really, all it is they put the taxes in there, and they put like the maintenance fees in there, and they put like all these like other things that like you're going to be responsible for, but they put it into the rent. So let's just say, for instance, they say it's $14 a square foot, and you have 1,600 square feet. Well, you multiply those together, and you come up with some big number. And then you divide it by 12, and that's your actual pay that you're going to pay for rent. So this is something I'm kind of looking at because my lease is coming due and we're kind of growing pretty quick, and I'm going, man, we got to find a different place, and that's something that we're kind of looking at. So it's kind of fun to do a talk about this right now because it's the real life, man. This is what's kind of what's really happening now. I'm kind of sad though because the first office we had to get these signs that went outside, these like light up, like they're not neon, but they light
LED
up.
signs.
Yeah, like that. So
I've got one. You want to buy it?
I don't think it'll say my name on it. That's the problem. But, it basically said Lobass Chiropractic across it. And it's like it sat in my garage for 2 years because when I switched to a different location, we didn't know where to put it. Right. So we had this thing in my garage and then it's like, what am I going to do with this? This is stupid. Like, now I kind of wish I'd have, stored it somewhere or kept it or something, but, so you just never know. You might have to get another one and put another one up. But, that's just kind of part of the game we play, man, is switching things and putting things out like that. And, it's location can be a kind of a make or break for some people. If you're looking for that, if you're not like a hustler, like you're saying, and you don't have things online and you're not, going out and meeting people. I mean, you can't sit in the office, that's for sure. The other thing I want to talk about was the location of, your tables. Now, you do an open adjusting, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I've done open adjusting. In my very first office, I had 2 adjusting rooms, and I learned really, really quick after that I did not like having adjusting rooms at all.
Why is that?
I felt like I was sequestered off away from the office. I felt like I was an island unto myself. I didn't feel like I was plugged into what was going on, which, to be fair, at the time, there really wasn't much going on. I mean, we almost starved to death during that time.
Right.
But another thing that I didn't like is the idea of being trapped in a room with someone. And this may come across the wrong way. I don't intend it to come across the wrong way, but sometimes you get with some of your people, and they tend to bend your ear a little too far. They tend to take advantage of the situation. They get you by yourself, and they're going to ask you about each and every little problem they've got going on. And I'm like, dude, I just want to check your spine for subluxation, clear that out, and get your life going again. Let's handle that. But they're going to ask you about that ingrown toenail that they've got on their left foot that's been bothering them, and what are some natural things that I might be able to do for that? Or what do you think about crystals? Do you think crystals can help? And those are questions that I've gotten before. And you're there in a room and you can't get out, and you don't want to be rude and open the door and just leave. And at the same time, you have other people that might be waiting. Just the rooms, being in the rooms, I just don't like that. I like the open concept, which my office kind of has a different feel to it. Whenever we moved into where we are now, we painted it and set everything up to be as anti-doctor office as possible. And one of the comments that we get is this does not feel like a medical place. This does not feel like a doctor's office. And I'm like, well, good. That's what we were going for. Because no one likes going to the doctor's office. No. You don't ever hear about anyone ever saying, oh, I can't wait to go to the doctor's office. So we wanted to make our place more like a hip cafe, more like a coffee shop. That's the vibe you get whenever you walk into our office. We've got different pieces of funky art on the wall. I've got a couple of pieces that I've made. We have a big kids play area. We've got half walls that are made out of reclaimed fencing panels. I built a front desk for my office manager out of the same type of wood. I've got an old, almost 100-year-old church pew that stands as seating. I've got soft chairs from IKEA and other things. I've got Thule tables, which kind of fit that motif. And we created a space like that. I like the open adjusting space personally. That's what I like, because in my office we have an upbeat vibe. We've got music going, coffee's made, and we just have one big conversation that's going on all the time. And people come in at different points in that conversation, and we just keep that conversation rolling among everyone. Now, there is privacy. I do have half walls around the adjusting area, so there is a measure of privacy. Not everyone's going to see what's going on over that wall, because people can get weird about that if it's just in the open in front of everybody.
It's kind of funny because I had one guy in the office one time, and I had two I call them semi-closed rooms, because, and it's kind of, you almost have to picture this, but basically my office used to be like one of those Match.com type of, before it was Match.com, it was just like Match. So They had these like big glass windows in it, so that I guess people could, from the front, could like make sure people aren't like, I don't know, being weird or whatever inside these rooms. And so there's this huge big glass. So I call them semi-private rooms, because, I mean, anyone from the lobby
can still see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see right in. But they used to be like just like two rooms, and I had to like walk out of one room and back into the other, and it was killing my flow through there, man. People are walking, I'm like bumping into it. It was terrible. It was a terrible place. So I had them cut like a hole in the wall so I could walk between the two rooms, and like kind of like what you're saying is saying, because I know exactly what you're saying. Like, you're not trying to be rude, but sometimes it gets busy. Some people are like asking you just the weirdest stuff, and it's like, if this was all open, they'd probably hold that weird stuff to an email later, or they would ask you like, if you weren't busy, like, hey, last week I was going to ask you about this, but you got busy or something. Like, so I am totally with you. I think my next office is definitely going to be completely open, because that walking back and forth stuff is kind of, and on top of that, I think it's important to, when people are in there and they're asking questions, saying, hey, do you think that my son would do better, if than coming in here with his ear infections, or do you think it would definitely be an educational point for everyone in the whole office. Do you find that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I have a family that I've been taking care of now for about 3.5 years. This year, what is it, 2019? So 4 years now. I've been taking care of them since 2015, and is mom and dad. And at that time, the way my fee structure was set up, I had an individual fee, a couple's fee, and a family fee. I did away with the couple's fee, and these folks were the thing that motivated me to do away with it. I love them to pieces and still see them to this day. Love taking care of them. Well, they've got well, at the time they had 3, now they have 4 children. And mom and dad are getting sane, but little girls and little son, little baby boy, they ain't getting sane. That's why I did away with the couples fee. I don't want the kids to languish at the house when mom and dad are getting adjusted. You don't leave your kids out. Come on, let's check them too. But I'm not the parent. It's their decision, and I'll bring it up from time to time, but I'm not going to badger them about it. I'm not going to harass them about it. Well, it's taken years, but mama gets it. And she was talking to me the other day about how, I had no idea that kids, could benefit so much from chiropractic. I was talking to, one of these moms, and, I saw this article. She's a nurse. She was saying, I saw this article that this mom shared about chiropractic and ear infections. And then I saw another one about chiropractic and colic. And she's like, I had no idea that, but it just makes sense. And she's the one telling me it just makes sense. They have little spines too. They need to be checked. And I'm thinking, yeah, so when are we going to get your kids checked? Yeah. When are we going to do that? And other people heard that. Another new person that just started with me about 2 weeks ago, she comes up and said, now, were you guys just talking about ear infections? I don't want to be an eavesdropper or anything, but were you talking about ear? Yeah, my son, he keeps having issues. I'm like, well, bring him in. She's bringing him in tomorrow. Yeah. So it does create those opportunities for education where people can hear the story. Yeah. Are we treating the ear infection? No, of course not. And I make that clear. We're clearing their nervous system so their body works better. And as a result, their body is better equipped to deal with those stressors and those, challenges to their, resistive forces, to those external invasive forces, and they're able to be better for it. Mm-hmm. And it creates many opportunities for that. But one of the things that you mentioned when you were talking about the rooms and having to cut that wall on the side, that's similar to what Jay Corson has set up. He can go back and forth between his rooms. And whenever you think about seeing a lot of people, this is something else to consider. If you're seeing a lot of people and you're having to walk 15 feet back up to the front to get your next person and then walk 15 feet back to your adjusting area, or 20 feet, or however long your hall is, or whatever that distance is, you're eating up a lot of time that you could be using to get other, people on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, my setup is kind of interesting because from my rooms, I can see the hallway. It's kind of set up sideways. So mine's like, hey, come on, like next, get in line. Next. Like that's it, man. It's usually that kind of behavior is, come on, let's go. Yeah, so that's really interesting, man. I think a lot of people, you made an interesting point with this, the half walls. I always giggle when I hear that type of thing because I think chiropractic and getting somebody adjusted and it doesn't seem that private to me. Like as a whole, I said, did you see her C2 getting adjusted? Like it's not,
look at that.
It's not like a typical medical procedure. Obviously we're not, talking about things that are personal for the, majority of the time anyway. But, that's why I think the open adjusting concept is absolutely brilliant and, definitely something we're going to look into for the next round.
I highly recommend it. Another thing I would recommend is having a space where you can have those conversations should that need arise. Mm-hmm. I have had some folks that have been struggling with some issues and have just needed someone to talk to. They just didn't have anyone else to talk to. And I'm not a counselor by any stretch, but I have a little room in the back. It's the room that I'm in right now. This is where my wife does massage. You guys keep it together. Come on. It's not that big a deal. But she does massage in here on the days that I'm closed. This is also where I do my intake for all of my newbies. I do an insight subluxation scan on them. And if someone needs to talk to me about something personal or if they've got something going on that they need to discuss, then we just take a few minutes. We come back here and we discuss it. Or we schedule a time to discuss it later if we're super busy. But that open adjusting concept, I absolutely love it. I can't see practicing any other way.
Now, wait, you said something real interesting there. No x-rays. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. I had an x-ray room. Whenever I very, very first opened up. Bought an old high-frequency unit from a chiropractor down in Texas and hauled it from Texas. Me and my buddy tore it down ourselves, and we hauled it from Texas up to Oklahoma on a flatbed 1-ton Ford truck.
Oh, my.
That was fun.
I bet
Moving
not.
that cathode, bro. That sucker was a man killer.
I bet.
But anyway, ended up selling it whenever we downgraded because there was no place to put it. And even in my location I'm in now, I've got 2,200 square feet. And because of the way the building is shaped, even if I wanted to add x-ray, that's not something that I could really feasibly do. Mm-hmm. So the way we roll, there's no x-rays needed. I know there are some chiropractors that say, well, we are not going to take any chances with your health. To see is to know, and to not know is to guess. And we refuse to guess about your health. And then they'll proceed to take an x-ray that has zero diagnostic quality whatsoever. You can't see anything on it, and it's all washed out and faded, and it just looks terrible. And it's like, really? Okay, sure, whatever. But no, we don't do x-rays in our practice.
Now, just to be clear, we're not against x-rays. If
No, not at
somebody
all.
wants to take them, that's cool. That's fine. I got no problem with them either. I'm the same way. We use a scanner as well. I think it's fantastic. But I am absolutely not against x-rays. As a matter of fact, the x-ray machine I bought was brand new, high frequency. And we still had to use the processor and the chemicals, and which never got cleaned, right? We never we never
If we're being real, that crap never gets cleaned up.
no, ever,
Never.
right? It's like the grease at the bottom of McDonald's, man. Like that stuff never ever gets fixed. But anyway, so wait, we had trouble after trouble with that thing, man. It was just an absolute nightmare. Hopefully today people are better with them, and that you don't have to, obviously with the digital stuff, it makes it a lot nicer.
Yeah.
But if you are going to get an x-ray machine, obviously there's things you got to consider. You got to have some lead walls, or be shooting at a wall that is like an outer surface, like an outer exterior type of wall. And obviously if it's a drive-through, obviously you can't be shooting people in the drive-through of the coffee shop next door, that kind of
can't
thing.
do that.
No,
They frown on that.
Yeah, you don't want them to glow with their coffee. But there's things like that you got to think about, and know that, there's, you can buy lead to put up on the walls, which is, super fun to roll out lead and screw it onto the walls. But we had to do that. It was not a good time. You
have to make sure your machine's certified. Depending on what state you're in, you have to certify your machine with the state. You have to get it checked every year to make sure it's within compliance, make sure it's, still safe to use. You have to make sure that your room's in compliance, and that, you're not breaking any laws that way, or you're looking at a hefty fine. But I'm not against x-rays at all. In fact, every now and again I had a gal 2 weeks ago that I had to send out for x-rays. She came in, she was lifting weights. She's one of my regulars. I've been taking care of her now for almost 8 years, and she was lifting weights and had this sudden pain in her side and in her back. She came in, I check it out, I'm palpating. I'm like, I think you might have something going on here that's a little bit beyond what I can do to help you. So I sent her out, got some x-rays, and she had a cracked rib. She broke her rib. Lifting weights, of all things, she broke her rib. So
happens.
glad I sent out for films. There's a time for them. There's a place for them. But to be so hardline that you say, oh, well, we're not going to x-ray because that's unnecessary radiation. And, Reggie Gold did vertebrae, and we've got advanced muscle palpation now. So if you do x-rays, you're just irradiating people for no reason. I don't like that mentality. I also don't like the mentality of, as well, to not see is to not know, and to not know is to guess, and we're not going to guess. And any chiropractor that doesn't shoot x-rays is guilty of malpractice. You need to x-ray everybody. I don't agree with that either. I think that's a load of crap.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's I don't have any problem with people looking at x-rays or seeing but again, I think once you start looking at x-rays and you do miss something, then that's a problem too, right? Like if from
got some liability there.
From a malpractice standpoint, you miss something huge, then all of a sudden, hey, you took a film, you didn't call this, like you're a doctor. So there's a problem there too.
Absolutely.
But that goes into a lot of paperwork stuff and kind of where, it's a whole different show as well. But, yeah, man, there's a lot to think about when you're starting your practice, and kind of how that, how that plays into. But I think a lot of guys go way too big, and I think we were guilty of it. Sounds like you were as well.
Yes.
Listening to school, and I think school's mentality of, there's that saying that says those who teach, can't practice, and they teach for a reason. They're not out there
those
practicing.
Who can do, those who can't teach.
There you go. That's the one.
Yeah.
I'm great at throwing out random facts that you actually fix. I feel like the old Tool Time, man, where Wilson's like, this is what it is, and then Tim screws it up completely, man. We do this game a lot. But anyway, school is fantastic for that, is saying, this is this is what you need, 15, 1800, whatever, 2000. And maybe you will need that at some point, and maybe you don't need that yet. Right now, maybe you just need some guys practice in a 600 square foot office or less, and some guys are have huge offices and still membership there, goes all the way around. So it's, I think it's a good idea to find a reasonable size, somewhere in the mix of that somewhere. And if you're open adjusting, I think you need less space, to be quite honest, because you don't need all these rooms and build outs and all this, super fancy stuff, because you're an open office. I mean, you need a closed bathroom and maybe a room that's closed off for exams. And then past that, I mean, you really don't need a whole lot.
We spent $700 on our build out in the space we're in now.
That's fantastic.
$700. We bought lumber. I found some old fence panels old privacy fence panels that a dude was getting rid of. He had put up a new fence, and I bought those from him for $30. And I bought new slats to intermingle with the old slats, and some sheetrock, mud and tape, a door for what would become the exam room / massage room, and that was it.
Yeah.
And we're rolling at that point. And paint. Had to buy paint.
Did you have any fancy tables? Did you go out and buy the $10,000 tables?
Oh, I wanted to, but it wasn't in the budget. So I went with Thule, and I bought one of the Thule. I think it's the 300 model with the pelvic drop, the cervical drop, and then I bought the 500 model. And then I went ahead and sprung for the elevation base on the 300. So I had those two Thules plus my Thule portable that I bought whenever I was a student, and those are the tables I use. I do need to replace the pelvic drop on one of them, though. I adjusted a fella who was around 430 pounds last week, and he stripped the tensioner out on that drop, so I got to order a new one of those.
Oh, good time. Hey, you know what? That happens, man. There's a lot. We have some big folks that come in too, and they're a little rougher on the tables than the other ones.
Well, and they need the care, and that Thule has held up great for 9 years. I mean, I bought it in 2010, and it's just been a workhorse. They are fantastic tables, but you don't need to drop $17,000 on a brand new Zenith high-low. You don't need to drop 22 or 23,000 on a brand new, Leander Cox table or a flexion distraction table.
Oh no,
you can. If you're really on a budget, you can get if you're really on a budget and you want drops, you can get a good portable table with drops. Thule's portable table with drops is absolutely fantastic. That thing is practically bomb-proof.
Yeah.
And I've been using it since 2008, whenever we were taking Thompson in school.
We had flat benches for several years. And about 2 years ago, I bought one that has this like an automatic flexion on it that I throw people on when I'm busy and let them stretch out a little bit. And that's it, man. I mean, past that, I never took any Thompson, or I took Gonstead in school. I didn't do any flexion distraction courses or anything. But I mean, it was just one of those things that I thought, man, this would be cool to throw people on and let them stretch out. And I like it, but you don't have to have this fancy stuff. I was thinking about it the other day to start over. And I had just getting out of school and having the knowledge that I have now to open a practice and get going. How much money would that really take?
What did you come up with? Because I have a number in my mind. I want to see what you came up with.
I think the biggest part of it would be living expenses for probably the first year.
Yes.
Or maybe year and a half, something of that nature, just to not be stressed about bringing home money out of the practice. I think that's a tough one, man, to be quite honest. If I really had to get, all the stuff I needed to, have the rent covered for the first year, the practice expenses, stuff like that. I think I'd really have to put some math together, to be honest. I don't have a good number in front of me, but it would probably not be near what I borrowed from the bank to get my business loan.
Well, exactly. I have a good friend of mine who practices in my town, and he's one of my best friends in the world. I love the guy to death. He's a rank mixer. Brent, if you're listening to this, I love you, even though you're a mixer. I don't hold that against you. I love you, baby. But Brent, whenever he graduated about a year and a half after I did. And he was from this area like I was, wanted to come back to this area like I did, and wanted to practice. And he came to me and he was asking me, so what do I need to do to get started? And I told him, I said, don't do what I did. I borrowed $110,000 to start my practice, and that was a colossal mistake. And I mean, fortunately, things worked out. We paid that loan off 2 years ahead of schedule. But I said, you don't need that much. He said, well, how much do you think I would need? And I said, bro, you don't need any more than $20,000 to get started. I think $20,000, especially if you're going to start a practice in the membership model, I think 20 grand to get started is definitely enough. If you have a spouse that works,
There you go.
if you have a spouse that's working, you can do it with 20 grand. 20 grand is plenty of money because you don't want to go on the cheap and buy like metal church style folding chairs for your reception area. I mean, you want to make it somewhat attractive, but you can get nice chairs from IKEA for $20 a piece. You know, you can get, a nice little coffee table from these little places. You can go to some little vintage stores and find stuff, and you can create a real nice homey atmosphere without spending a lot of money. Look at Pinterest. Look at what's on Facebook.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. If you have a spouse that's working, and it's and she can, or he, whatever, either way, can maintain that, then that's fantastic. I was not in that position, and no, and that's cool. But I think for me, if you're on your own, like you're a single guy or a single female, I'm going to say more in like probably the $60,000 or $70,000 range. But most of that, like you said, maybe the 15 is to actually, make sure you have some money in the bank. The rest of it is going to be living expenses until you can get your practice up and moving.
Yes.
And
you want to be as frugal as you can with your living expenses. I know my wife and I, we rented a small house whenever we moved back up here, which we only had one kid then. We have 4 now, and they're all monsters, and I love them. But we rented a little small house right across the street from her parents. And that was a great blessing to be that close to them. But we were out in the country. We were paying like $300 a month in rent, but the house needed some work. So I told the owner of the home, I said, I'll do the work on the house and fix it up if you'll abate that out of our rent. And he did. He abated our rent. So we lived there rent free for about 7 or 8 months.
That's nice.
So that was a real blessing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Until you can get that practice up, man, there's no extra expenses, man. You live as nice as you can, and realize that first year or two,
it was 2 for us.
I mean, you just got to bust it, and you just know that's the game plan. Is we're not going to, I don't want to tell you not to have any fun or not to go on a vacation or something, but at the same time, like you got to take that practice real serious to grow that up, man, because it's the rest of your life. I mean, and part of that is just getting into, a group like you're running, or listening to the old, if you're a membership guy and you want to, build that base, you have to have that philosophy in there. You got to have that Reggie Gold. You got to have the Sid. You got to have the Sid Williams.
Sigafus.
Right, Sigafus. Yeah. All these old guys, man, that like ran these huge practices, and the ones that I kind of felt like, I mean, not that I'm looking to go to jail for running a practice, but, these are the guys that did, man. They went to jail because they were running practices that they were in trouble, and the medical society was throwing fits over. And, I think it'd be really cool. That's kind of what got me excited when I was, in a place where I needed that help, was that, man, these guys they'd get like released from jail, and people would like hear, they didn't have like, Facebook or Instagram to say, hey, I'm out, like go to the practice tonight. Like, but they had this like following where people were like, couldn't wait to get back in, man. Like they were like, hey, he got released tonight. Like we're going at 8:00. He got released at 6. Like, let's go line up. Like they were so like, they wanted in there. They wanted that, I thought, man, that's the kind of practice I want, is the people who actually like are excited to be in that practice. Like they want to be there,
yeah.
and they get the idea of it, and they're like, man, I'm going to skip dinner tonight because we got to go get adjusted tonight. And that to me, like fueled me, like realizing those are the folks that like, those are going to build your practice. But you got to have that.
You have to create the space that draws those people in. And you have to be the kind of person that is going to serve people. And you have to serve. One of the things Sid always talked about is give, love, and serve out of your own abundance without the expectation of anything in return. And you have to have that mindset. You have to have that mindset of service. But if you don't have an attractive space, then that's going to be a turnoff to some people.
Yeah.
And, you have to have that space. And to have that space, you might need to spend a little bit more money, to bring it back full circle to the, that idea. You have to spend a little bit of money, but you don't have to spend all the money.
No,
you don't have to spend. No.
Sometimes a broom and a mop, and just making sure your floors don't have little dust bunnies everywhere, and just
Exactly.
clean goes a long way versus even nice sometimes. Just the fact that it's clean.
And it smells clean.
Oh man, I've walked in a few offices and went, man, there is just crap all over the floor. Like this doesn't scream health to me. This does not scream like where I want to be at.
Oh yeah, and we have to be really careful about that because we have 2 front doors, and there's our floors are concrete, and we see a lot of kids, and kids are disgusting creatures, and they track stuff in and they make messes. So we have to be really mindful of that. Also, another thing, talking about clean is I tend to be a little bit of a clutter bug myself. My office manager, fortunately, is not, so she stays on top of me for that and keeps me from cluttering things up too much. But yeah, keep things clean, keep things neat, keep things presentable, and it doesn't cost anything to keep things clean.
No, man, but yeah, that goes such a long way when people see that even like at lunchtime, if you can take your trash out, make sure that's not overflowing, or even in the bathrooms, that's the first thing that most people go to, like in a restaurant or even your office, is just making sure that bathroom's clean. That makes such a huge difference when you walk in there. Even when I walk in there and I go, ugh, then I know everyone that morning has went, ugh. And that's disgusting to me because I'm a guy. Let's be honest. It takes me a little bit to go, ugh.
Yeah, we have a lower threshold for that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, or a higher threshold. Yeah. Well, shoot. Well, another thing is make sure your office smells good. Make sure it smells good. A few blocks away from where we are, Bluebonnet has a feed mill, and if the wind's blowing just right, you can smell that sweet feed that they make for horses. It's got a lot of molasses in it. It smells great. But depending on the time of day, no, it really does smell great. That's not sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
But depending on the time of day, though, they might be making and manufacturing their cattle cubes, their range cubes. Now, that does not smell great.
Sure.
Lord knows, it smells terrible. But that's one thing where I think essential oils are huge. We keep a diffuser up at the front, and we have different blends that are going all the time, not because we want to sell them or we want to get folks in on that MLM, making that sweet oil money, right. But they freaking smell good, dude. We had something happen the other day. It was hilarious. We have a little mini fridge that I keep my
beer
lunch in. Well, we do have an emergency bottle of vodka in there for just in case someone's really, really wound up. But no, we have a little mini fridge. I keep my lunch in there, and we have a half and half that we use for our coffee that we keep in there as well. Well, I had left the lunch in there over the weekend, and the broccoli had turned.
Oh.
So one of our first people of the day, they get in there to get the half and half out, and they open that fridge, and it was like, something died. They're like, God, is there like a dead rat under there or something? And they smelled it immediately, and they were polite. They didn't say anything. And Kelsey, she's up front, and she gets a whiff of it. She thinks it might be something outside. Then I get a whiff of it, and I'm like, oh, my God, it smells terrible. And I don't do well with smells. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, my God, my place smells awful. And I got these people pouring in here. But I smell it. No one else is saying a word. So that's something else you got to think of. In your practice, it might smell awful. You might have some stank in there. And ain't nobody going to say a word to you because they're going to be polite.
Right.
Sometimes you'll get someone who's blunt and direct, and I was like, man, what's that smell?
Yeah.
But do what you can to be proactive and keeping the place smelling good. Keep it smelling good. Keep it clean. And those are cheap ways that you can really boost the value of your location.
I'll tell you, we have a bathroom kind of down the hallway that's, like you said, like the public bathroom. And there was a kid that went in there one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you feeding that kid, man? Like, like I had to air out. I mean, it was winter. I had to air this place out afterward. I mean, it was brutal. And after that, my wife said, you need to keep a little spray on the back of the toilet so that you can blow that place out when you need to, because that's a tip of the day right there. If you can,
I'm going to plug something too right here. This is something that we found, that I have found. I don't really like the Glade or the Febreze. I have one of my people that's been with me from almost day one. She's patient number 6.
Oh, wow.
She's still with me even to this day. Number 6. Her husband's number 8. Her mom is number 7. So, yeah, she is very, very sensitive to smells. She doesn't do well with smells. She's reactive to it. She has which it's way better now than it was whenever she first started, but she used to have really bad asthma and really bad allergies. And her allergies still aggravated from time to time, but with her nervous system being clear now for the last, 8.5 years, she's way better than she was. But anyway, those artificial sprays, some people are sensitive to them. Mm-hmm. There's a product that's all natural that my office manager turned me on to called Poo-Pourri.
Okay. Yep.
Poo-Pourri. And the idea is that you can either spray it as an air freshener whenever you're done doing your business, or you can spray it on top of the water before you do your business, and it locks the smell in. Now, it's expensive. It's like, for a little tiny bottle, it's like $10.
Worth every penny.
Dude, well, that little tiny bottle lasts you a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it lasts you a long time. So, and it only takes one spritz, and it just takes all that odor right out of the air. So,
that's
put
fantastic.
A little plug in for that.
Absolutely. No, that's great, man. Yeah, it's all these little details, I think, when it comes to, kind of getting started. And we try to make it as simple as we can, kind of doing this podcast and helping people out. But all these little details, the smell, the look, even the size and the open adjusting, all these little things really add up to a good patient experience, and getting people in the door, letting people know that you exist. All these things really make a big difference when it comes to just the whole image of your office.
Well, and the chiropractor I worked for in high school, I talked about this before. He was a Singer doctor. He was with David Singer. And say what you will about Singer, this is one thing that I got from one of the Singer seminars or workshops that we went to that has stuck with me. And it's absolutely spot on. Whenever you go to a hotel, the difference between a good hotel and a great hotel are those little things. How are the towels presented? What does the room smell like whenever you walk in? How clean is the grout in the bathroom? Do they put the little mint on your pillow? All of those little things that are inconsequential as far as cost goes make a huge difference in perceived value. And if you put your best foot forward and you really focus on those little things, it can really make a big difference in the mind of the people that are seeking you out.
I know when you're thinking about, starting your practice and that you're trying to, I think me personally, maybe it's just how I think, but bigger picture, right? So you're thinking, how many, you've got the Excel spreadsheets out, and maybe I'm just a nerd and do this, but your calculator out and you're doing this and you're saying, how many people am I going to need and how's the rent? And you're thinking of all the big picture stuff. And really, it takes the small picture to get to the big picture, I think, a lot of times. I mean, you kind of have to be in it and see it and go, man, you can have the perfect rent numbers and the perfect amount of new patients coming in, but if you walk in someplace like that and it reeks, or the paint's all bad and you're just like, this isn't going to do it, guys. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
No one's going to stick around for that. So, I think these little things make a huge difference. And I'll be honest with you, my wife is the one that takes care of little things like that, because I'm not. Like, it cracks me up. We have this soap in the bathroom, and it's I can't remember what bed. I can't figure out.
Bed Bath and Beyond, baby.
That might be it. I don't know. I can't ever figure out.
I'm a nerd for soap, man. I love soap.
One of them is it was like a black cherry, I think, is the flavor or the smell scent of it. And it's so funny. I have these big guys that come out of the bathroom, and they're like, one of them was a deputy. He comes out one day and he's all uniformed up, kind of big boy. He's walking through and he goes, man, I could eat that soap, I was just cracking up laughing, man. I'm still walking, helping people and adjusting and serving. And I hear that. And I mean, it's like everybody goes into crack up mode. It was just so funny to watch. Because
he's going to bust some tweaker, and that tweaker's going to say, man, your hands smell good.
Right. Exactly. It's so true though, man, because that's but soaps, I would have never thought of that. I'd have just bought the cheap stuff. But my wife is smarter, than me, and she goes and gets the good stuff, and people are always like, I had a lady the other day say, that's why I come here. I like the soap, they're giving me grief about it, and so it's fun. It's a good time, but it's these little things, man. So anyway, I think that's all I kind of had for tonight, was kind of getting started and cost and kind of keeping things in a reasonable amount. Don't go over, don't shoot yourself in the foot and rent be so high that you can't pay the bills. I mean, that's, I would say you've got to have a what we call a spending plan, and I don't like the word budget; it sounds too constricting. But spending plan sounds cool, and put that in your spending plan of this is what it's going to cost, and you'll be amazed how fast that spending plan can grow. You have to kind of keep a little bit of a harness on it, especially in the beginning, until you really start getting those numbers up where they need to be. So that's super important.
Absolutely, and I'd be willing to bet you money, we will revisit this idea of rent and what it costs whenever we have our episode and we start to discuss how you go about setting your fees and what that process looks like.
Indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. That's it for tonight.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man. See you next week.
Sounds good, brother. Good night.